Hello everyone, I'm bringing you the Mannequin of the Month for March 2024 today. As is typical, the topic we're going to talk about here was chosen via a poll over on Patreon, and the topic itself is the kit, the uniform of a sub-lieutenant in the Royal Navy, serving as part of a boarding party, commanding a boarding party in the mid-1950s to early 1960s. So there's not a huge amount here to talk about, obviously no web equipment or anything, but we do have the life jacket, the working uniform and so forth. We're going to run through all of that. During this time, obviously Britain was heavily involved in Far East, Malaya and latterly in Borneo, and Sarawak and Borneo. So you do have quite a lot of coastal operations going on there, boarding of vessels, which might have been smuggling weapons and so forth. And obviously boarding actions take place all over the world as well in certain situations, dealing with potential smuggling and various other things, drug running, that sort of thing. And that, much as it exists today, existed back then as well. So boarding actions were a very common part of the Royal Navy's operations. As I say, this is set up to represent a sub-lieutenant commanding a boarding party. And that gives us a chance to talk a little bit about the shirt and the wearing of officers' rank and so forth. Very pleased to be talking about this. Royal Navy kit, or naval kit, was my first interest when it came to collecting, so it's always nice to have a set of naval uniform and equipment on the Mannequin to talk about. So we'll get into this now and talk about these various bits and pieces in a bit more detail. Starting at the top, as we normally do, we have here the Royal Armoured Corps pattern helmet. In the post-war years, this came to replace the Mark II steel helmet. It's more appropriate for use on board ship and without having the large rim around the edge. Just a better design of helmet overall from that point of view. And of course, these would be in service for many years in the Royal Navy post-war, basically through the majority of the Cold War. It became the standard Royal Navy steel helmet. Obviously worn in this instance doesn't really provide any ballistic protection, but it does protect from blows to the head and also acts as something of a crash helmet as well. So it serves that dual purpose. You can see here the green elastic chin strap coming around here. So a post-war example of the Royal Armoured Corps helmet worn here for protection of the head. Over the top of the uniform, we have a life jacket, and these were commonly worn, obviously, going from the ship to the ship that's going to be boarded in a small boat. It's important to have a life preserver, life jacket on, which we have here. This is basically an immediate post-war design, this particular example dated from 1952. During the Second World War, there had been a lot of criticism, justified criticism, of Royal Navy life-saving equipment, and this was a subject of a serious inquiry and basically a lot of research and development to produce something a lot more effective, and this design was introduced. And basically this design, with some modifications and more modern materials, has been in use until very recently, if not still in use, the basic design with various other additional details. But the yoke that goes around the neck and then carried in a pouch like this basic design has stood the test of time very well. It was a good design. In this instance, it's an earlier example, a metal mouthpiece here for inflation. This would later be replaced by plastic, and in the 1960s it would have been more common to see the later examples with a plastic mouthpiece, and it would be progressively updated. Spray hood would be introduced later in the 1970s, and it would be made of a nylon rather than this rubberized canvas material. So various improvements to the design, but the overall design very, very good, and with some modifications, I believe, still in use today. As I say, it is carried in a waist belt pouch here. You can see that underneath there. So this, when it's not around the neck like this, ready for use, can be rolled and folded into this pouch and just carried on the waist at the front for ease of access. You do have a handle here which attaches to the belt and the straps which run down under the shoulders, which mean that if you need to lift someone out of the water into a life raft, you have the ability to do that. You can grasp this and help pull them in. You have a whistle here. We also have a light here, and there's a wire running down to a battery box carried in the waist pouch here. And obviously at night, that will provide illumination and allow you to be found if you were floating in the water, or make it a bit easier. Anyway, that was the idea. Obviously it is manually inflated, so we have the mouthpiece here, as already mentioned, and that screws open and closed for inflation, and then to seal that closed once it's been inflated. So the life jacket worn there, an important piece of life-saving equipment, of course, and we'll see more of the straps and how this actually attaches onto the body as we move the Mannequin round. The basic uniform is the action working dress, or number 8 uniform in the Royal Navy's uniform numbering system. This consists of a lighter blue cotton drill shirt and dark blue cotton trousers. This particular pattern is a 1950s pattern that was worn into the 1960s, and it's a very simple uniform. It would basically remain the Navy's standard working uniform throughout the Cold War in various iterations. At this point, the shirts did not include epaulets. They wouldn't appear until modified design in the 1970s. So officers had to wear shoulder rank using shoulder boards, which were designed for use for tropical uniform and other uniforms. So the shirt has actually been quite neatly modified to allow those to be fitted, and we'll see more of that as we move this round, which we'll start doing now. We'll move this round and have a look at the right-hand side. Looking at the right-hand side of this, we can see various further details. We can see the side profile of the helmet there, the rivet here for the bail where the chin strap is attached. You can see the epaulette up on the shoulder here, and this is the same sort of epaulette you'd see worn on tropical uniform. This is actually has a black backing to it rather than white. They were normally backed with a white material, but for wear on working uniform, I happen to have this pair in my collection. It seems appropriate to have those with a black backing to them rather than white. They attach with laces which run through holes in the shoulder of the shirt there, and then the button shank at the top, there is a button up on the top of the epaulette there. That runs through a hole as well and is pinned in place with a split ring, excuse me. So the shoulder boards are, as I say, intended for wear on tropical uniform. They were also worn stitched onto greatcoats and working dress and so forth as well. The number 5A working dress, the battle dress type uniform. But in this instance, they are laced in place as they would be on tropical uniform. The shirts had to be modified to allow for this, so holes have been added and quite neatly so stitched in. So this was definitely an officer's shirt at some point. The shirts, as I say, were not really designed with the wearing of officer's rank in mind. Officer ratings could wear their arm badges, the badges stitched on the arm, and chief petty officers wore them stitched onto the breast. But officers were not really accounted for, so shirts had to be modified to allow shoulder rank to be worn in this manner. You may be able to see from there as well that the curl is steaming ahead, as is described. That is to say that the curl comes round and is then loops back on itself that way. So if it were a paddle wheel, it would be steaming ahead, as it were. That's the way these should be worn. The sleeve is rolled up, suggesting wear in hotter climates, which, as mentioned at the start of the video, would be very typical. You can also see the strap coming around under the arm and the belt for the life jacket here. So the yoke of the life jacket runs up round the neck here, but these straps come round under the arms to the back of the belt as well. So it does make for a very secure fastening around the body. It means you will float the right way up, even if you're knocked unconscious. That's the intention anyway. See, the centre of buoyancy is up on the chest here, and that would have the tendency to right you and have you floating the right way up, even if you were unconscious. You can see there's a buckle on the belt here to adjust this in, so this would be adjusted for the wearer, and the side straps can be adjusted as well, as we'll see as we move this round. The trousers are very plain. There are no leg pockets or anything. We do have a hip pocket here, as you can see, and you can see the rear pocket pulled round to the side here. There is a rear pocket there with a button through slit and the bag inside there, as you can see. The final detail to mention here, of course, is the light, which you can see more clearly here. It's attached to the shoulder of the life jacket here with two little laces. It fits into a little pocket and it's laced in place, and the wire runs down here to a battery box which is carried in the pouch around the waist down there. We'll continue moving this round now and have a look at the back. Looking at the back here, you can see that rear pocket is on the right rear hip only. You don't have one over here. You can see the straps coming round for the life jacket here. You can see how these can be adjusted in. There's a large hook here where this hooks together, and then you have a keeper here which keeps the two straps together, where this is adjusted in using the buckle on the side. The shirt is pretty plain at the back. You do have a double pleat running down there, but otherwise not a lot more to talk about here. Just the main point of interest really are the straps coming around from the life jacket there. You can see how this attaches around the back and adjusts in as well. Finally, looking at the left-hand side, there isn't a huge amount more to see here. If we lift the arm out of the way, you can again see the strap coming round to the rear here. We've got another one of those keepers there for the waist belt. Unfortunately, the snap or press stud on this has come adrift, so that's just hanging down there. Just a little bit of damage to this, unfortunately. I need to replace a couple of press studs on it. One of the ones on the flap for the pouch is broken as well, unfortunately. But otherwise, not a lot more to see here, really. There's no further details to talk about other than what we saw on the other side. So, left-hand side of the mannequin there. So I hope you found it interesting looking at this. As I say, it's always nice to have naval kit on the mannequin, so thank you for those of you who voted over on Patreon for this topic. I do like having a bit of naval kit on display from time to time. If you have found this interesting and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as I always say, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated, as I always say. Obviously, it's the corporal tier over on Patreon, which gives you the opportunity each month to vote on what's going to be covered in Mannequin of the Month. So check that out if you'd be interested in casting your vote on what's going to be covered. There are usually 3 choices, and obviously I say this topped the poll this month. There will be photographs of this posted up over on social media, so Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, they're all linked down below. I say there'll be still photographs of this posted up over there if you'd like to have a closer look. And if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address in the description as well. That's everything for this video, so until next time, bye for now.